Welcome back to another episode. Thank you for tapping into the Mindful Moneymakers podcast, where we host different conversations with thought leaders, creatives, and entrepreneurs all about the different mindset shifts you need to make if you want to live a life by design instead of by default. Today, we are super excited to be speaking with this woman. She is a powerhouse, a lighthouse of energy, and to know her is to love her. She is the man whisperer. Because she connects with men on a very deep level. And I'm excited to get into this conversation today with Denise Frank. How are you?
I'm good, T Spice. How are you?
Oh, there's heaven all around me. You know the vibes.
Yeah.
You know the vibes indeed. So I'm super happy to have you on. Thank you for taking the time. Before we jump in, I do want to give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself a little bit more. I know I probably just scratched the surface. If you could tell us a little bit about how you got started with what you're doing, what you're up to now, and where are we headed?
Okay, well, I'm Denise, like T Spice said, and believe it or not, I am an introvert. But for whatever reason, in this space, have I'm I don't know, I just come alive, which tells me that I'm on the right path. So I'm the oldest of four. Um, and I've been raising my siblings since I was 8, or I should say raising kids since I was 8, and had to grow up really quickly and grow up on the streets because my mother was an addict and a hooker. So I had to become very resourceful with how we're going to eat, how we're going to have clean clothes, and just making sure my siblings were okay. That spilled over into our adult lives where they still come to me for life advice. And I ask them, why are you coming to me? Why can't you go figure that out by yourself? And their response is always, because even though you are our sister, you shoot it straight, you don't make us feel bad about where we're at, and you're unbiased in it, and you give very insightful advice. Um, I'm also the mother of 4, believe it or not. I have a 27-year-old. So my daughter's 27. I have 22, 17, and 15-year-old sons. They all have biblical names. I don't know. I guess I was at a certain place in life. And I have also 2 grandsons. So I'm Gigi, gorgeous grandma, to a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And unbeknownst to me, I've been coaching people my entire life. So over the course of 47 years, people come to me. I've had strangers walk up to me on the street and start pouring out their life story and then stopping and saying, I'm so sorry. I've never done that before, so I don't know what came over me. I have that effect on people wherever I go, and kids and animals. Now I understand why my oldest son wanted to be a vet and has a way about animals, because animals are drawn to me, and I never consider myself an animal person, but they feed off of the energy that we emit. So I must be putting good stuff out there. Because I've coached people many years, it's only been within the last, I want to say 6 or 7 years, that people start saying, you know what, you need to consider doing this professionally because you're good at it. And you don't judge us. You meet us where we're at. You don't pick sides and you give it to us straight, but you have a way of giving it to where we don't feel like you're putting us down or judging us because we're going through this. And outside of being the man whisperer, I'm the secret keeper of many. I know stuff that could incriminate some people because they feel that comfortable just pouring their hearts out because they know it's a safe space. So in September, I officially launched my business, Frankly Speaking, Life and Relationship Coaching. Um, and it's been a wild, wild ride because I didn't realize that this would be my life purpose, because I'm a teacher by trade. I taught high school English for 4 years until God said, okay, you've had your training period there. Now you need to go over here. And I was like, yeah, no, but with God, there's no yeah, but. So this is what he put me here to do. And being a man whisperer in grad school, I studied men, women, and relationships because I've always been intrigued by what makes people tick. because as a kid, I'm like, there has to be a reason why they're doing what they're doing. So I went to grad school and became better at reading people and assessing them without even opening their mouths, and learning why men do the things that they do further enhanced my curiosity and finding out how I could help. And I thought my purpose was to help women, but because men are so misunderstood and not given a safe space to express what they're thinking, to express what they're feeling, and not be judged for being human. And we'll get into more of that, I'm sure, as we go along, because I don't want to jump too far ahead, because I tend to get excited about these things, because my father is my best friend, and he had these conversations with me about men that I was just like, yeah, no, my dad's just crazy, until I went to grad school and learned. So I have a soft spot for men and helping women better understand them and meet them where they are, so everybody's happy.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And I'm resonating with so many of the things that you said. And in fact, I feel like I'm looking in a mirror in so many ways. Of all the entrepreneurs that I interview, I love interviewing coaches, because what we do is directly correlated with the intention behind this podcast, which is getting into your psychology and showing you how your mindset, your perspective, and your experiences, all of these things play a role in your outcome and in the results. And if you can tap into that and you can start to manipulate how you think, how you feel, you can then affect the results that you're getting. So I think that is super powerful. And just like you, I've always considered myself analytical. I was always very curious about the human mind for as long as I can remember. Why do people do what they do? Has always been like the biggest question for me. And I've always wanted to have conversations about it. And I guess that led me down a similar path to yours, in that I've always been coaching because I've always been curious. You know, I've always wanted to try things out, pick things apart. And then I would tell my little sister that, okay, this is what's safe. You can do this. This is fun. You probably want to avoid that, because I did all of these things rather than just listening to what I was told. And in fact, my father didn't like that at all. He was like a military man, and he believed in do what you're told. You know, saying no questions asked. And that was a huge problem for me. So there was this part of me that wanted to be expressed. And I guess like what you're saying, because now I'm just pouring out my whole heart. What you're saying is absolutely true. You make people feel safe. You make people feel like this is the time and the place to share, you know, and it's really exciting. And I know that it has been a journey for you. And I'm excited that you answered the call, because
Yes.
by doing that, you know, we met, we connected, and we've been having a lot of fun. But my question for you is, when it came time, when people were telling you that you're really good at this and it's probably time to make a profession out of it, did you feel any resistance? If so, like, how did you overcome that? What was that experience like, going from a school teacher to a full-time coach?
The experience, because when I moved to Texas 6.5 years ago, I worked for the foster care system for child and protective services. So I was the person, once kids came into foster care, that would go and make sure the home was the way it was supposed to be, the kids were being taken care of and whatnot. And I was that person who was asking the questions that we were taught to ask, but nobody was doing, because they felt it was being too intrusive. But then, you know, even those foster families saying, where have you been? Because you're just like, we've never met anybody like you before, because you're doing all of these things and nobody ever has. And even the families that had been fostering for 20 plus years. So having conversations with them about the kids, and then starting to talk about what's going on in their lives. And it's just crazy how every foster family I worked with, the conversation always shifted to what they were going through. So I was coaching the foster parents on how to be foster parents and in their personal life, and then coworkers, and then students when I was in the classroom, and then parents that administrators couldn't get to cooperate. But then Miss Frank comes along and they're pouring out their heart to me, and the administrators are like, well, how, I've been trying for 2 years. I said, well, we had a 20-minute conversation.
Yeah.
Because they felt safe in that space. And then, I was a college writing tutor also. And then COVID happened and caused everybody to pivot. And it's either you're going to pivot in a new direction or you're just going to resist. And I said, okay, well, you told me that this is what my purpose is. And now I've got the time to heal my own self, because I didn't think I could be effective if I was still going through stuff as a person, but then answering the call and being put in a position where God sat me down for 7 weeks and made me deal with my stuff to prepare me even more for this work. And that opened up so many things. So COVID was a blessing because it helped me focus on this. So that way I could do it and be 100% sure that this is the space I'm supposed to be in.
Yes, indeed. And I heard that voice too. And I know that it could be tough, to not know what's going to come of it, but to know that there is a passion, that there is a calling inside of you. What do you say to somebody that's listening right now, that feels that call, that feels that pull, but my bills, but my this, but my that, but my this, that, and the other?
Okay, so because I taught from 2015 to 2019, I knew in my heart that I would not retire from teaching, that it was just a pit stop along the way, because I wanted to be a teacher from the time I was in 3rd grade. God humored me and allowed me to become a teacher. I didn't know that was preparing me for now. So the last 3 years of my teaching career, I was surplused. And when you're surplus, that means that coaches take precedence over teachers regardless of seniority. So the first 2 years I panicked. I had bills, I got kids to take care of. What am I going to do? And God was dealing with me, and I was resisting the call. When I was surplus last year, I taught summer school, and that wasn't supposed to happen. Educators discovered that my way of teaching was actually meeting students where they were, breaking the coursework down to their level and bringing them up to where they needed to be so they could pass the standardized test. Teachers weren't doing that. So that was June. August, I get a text message. Can you call me? It was the co-chair of the English department of the high school I taught at. And I was given a choice: be demoted outside the classroom for not having the certification to teach the ESL population that I'd been teaching for 4 years. Why do I need a certification if I've attended trainings and that's the population I've been teaching? So it was either be demoted to a support role outside of the classroom or resign. I chose to resign because I have a master's degree, and you're not going to take me away from what I went to school to do, what I'm good at, and put me where you want when you want me. So that was August of 2019. So God closed that door because he knew that I would continue to teach until I felt comfortable with where I was, and then branched out and started part-time. And then I lost my apartment in January because I applied for jobs, and he kept them doors closed because he wanted me to focus on helping others, because people need me and what I do to bring them out of whatever wilderness or valley experience they're in. So I lost my apartment in January, lived with people for 30 days, and I almost fell apart. But God told me, you have to keep focusing, because I told you this is what you're going to do, and I'm going to get you through it. I found my house on Craigslist, because with when I lost my apartment with an eviction here in Texas, you are deemed unrentable, even though I was directed to places that were what they call second chance rental facilities. And even they turned me down. And I wanted to cry. I got in my truck and I said, God, I just feel like giving up because I've done all these things. I'm doing all the things. And it just seems like one thing after another. He had me look on Craigslist and I found my house. And everything. And I'd forgotten that I had 403b7 money from teaching. That's how I moved into my house and got things set up. So to whoever is listening, you can't allow your financial situation or the comfort of having that income be your focus, because where your focus goes is where you start planting seeds. And if you continue to plant seeds in fear, that dream, that purpose will never come to be. Because had I allowed my situation, losing my teaching job and losing my apartment by default, and it wasn't anything that I was doing all the things, then I would have continued to allow my situation and circumstances to dictate how I moved. Then in COVID, because I'm no longer at the community college, so I'm working my business full time by default, because I knew I was supposed to leave that job, but the income was keep holding me to it. And my daughter even said, she's like, Mom, you do know that your days at that place are drawing to a close, right? I'm like, no, because I was focused on the income. But then saying, okay, God, and it gave me peace, because when you know that you know that you know, you follow that. And that's what you focus on, because that's what you're going to feed and water. And that's what's going to sprout the harvest to replace that income. So no, I wouldn't tell you to leave your job. God,
I would. Let me do that.
I was pushed out there and it is hard. But what I would say is make a plan. Where do you want to be in 6 months? Do you want to be full-time in what that dream is? Then you got 6 months to make it happen. Find somebody to hold you accountable to that. Make a timeline and stick to it. Every day, devote time to planning it. So when that time comes, you've got your money's coming in. And when that 6 month mark hits, you've replaced income and you can say goodbye. And even if you're not exactly where you want to be in it financially, it's contributing to your bottom line. And it will continue to grow as you continue to move towards it. It's not easy, but it's necessary, and it's all up in here. You can't get caught up in, because you control the flow of your money does not control you.
That's a fact. I hope y'all are writing this down right now, because this is really, really good stuff. And Denise, I'm interested, as the men whisperer, right? What do you think is the most overlooked aspect of men or masculinity that could use a light to be shined on?
Because of this societal standard of the man having to be this sturdy, fixed being who is supposed to fix all these things, because men, and I'll back up a minute or a little bit. Men are fixers, they're providers, and they're protectors by nature. You think back to caveman days, and those were the three things that they focused on. And the women did their part. We're so far removed from that because men, in my opinion, have been stripped of their humanity or their humanness in being expected to be this bigger than life person who is biologically different than a woman, but he has wants, he has needs, he has things that tick him off, he has bad days, he has days where he doesn't want to do anything, but he's not allowed to give into those things because of other people's expectations of what he's supposed to be, how he's supposed to show up. And when you put him in a box like that, he has no place. Like women, we can go to our mom, our sisters, our girlfriend, our best cousin, and express what we're feeling. Men don't do that because they're taught to just suck it up, because that's what men do. And when you keep sucking it up and you've got years worth of stuffing all that stuff, it comes out in negative ways. So what I want to impart on women is you have to create that space where he can escape the world, because you're talking about going out here slaying dragons, and then you got to come home and you can't hang up your cape, because those same expectations that followed you out there follow you home. And most women are like, man, you better suck it up because you're just no. So when does he get to take off his cape and be human? And when women understand that if you create that safe space for him to be who he is without being judged and criticized, if he comes home and he comes to you, puts his head in your lap and cries, he needs that, and he needs you to support and protect him in it. You do that, he ain't gonna cheat. And he will give you the world, because you've created something that no other woman in his life, or the women that are eyeballing him and flirting at him are. You create a safe container for him to be human and express who he is as a person, because he's more than just a man with all of these different things that he's doing.
Right. Yes. Yes. All the way powerful, all the way true, and very introspective. And I think that being a woman in that space gives you the platform, or it gives you the ability to kind of pierce the veil, the barrier, where people don't want to hear, about themselves, and women don't, I need to do what? Well, if he just, men same way. Well, if she just, so I approach things in a very similar way, if not identical, because what I found is that while men are natural fixers, we want to lead, we want to create, we want to get results, we want to step into that masculine role. What is a huge detractor, or something that makes it a little bit more difficult, is women who also feel like they have to be in that masculine role, where they have to fix things and have to have everything figured out. And, they haven't been able to drop into their feminine, which is nurturing, which is, loving, which is being supportive. So as long as they feel like they have to do that, it's hard for them to be the feminine in the relationship and allow that man to cry in her lap. And see, that's the crazy part, because women feel like they have to be masculine, and men are told that they can't be feminine. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of throws all the poles off, and it creates a clash in our relationships. I do believe that if men dropped into their feminine and were allowed to feel and allowed to express that, then they would make peace with it, and their nature would show. They would become fully expressed as masculine men. And if women didn't feel like they needed, or they had that container, to essentially feel too, like, because they want to feel, but they want a man that's not going to be swayed one way or another because I'm feeling some type of way. I just need time. Like, this is a passing wave. This is a passing cloud. This is right now, but it may not be forever. And I need a man that's going to be a container for that. I think what I'm saying is we both just want containers. We both just.
Is with that. And that's something that I've struggled with, because like I said, I've been raising kids since I was 8 years old. So my dad was there until he and my mom split up. So I had to take on masculine, because I had to protect my siblings. When stuff came up, I had to figure it out. When stuff needed to be done, I had to do it. So I've been operating in my masculine space since I was 8 years old. And that's affected me as an adult, because in my marriage, I've been divorced 8 years, but in my marriage, the mistake I made was not holding my ex-husband accountable for himself as a man. When I would ask for things to be done, because he was a small business owner, he's a barber by trade. And if he didn't do things on my timetable, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to do it. So when he saw that that's what I would do and the approach I would take, he just fell back and was like, she's going to take care of it. I don't have to worry about it. So even in that, I was operating in the masculine because I had to. But then since my divorce, I've had men tell me, you don't need a man because you act like a man. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I get my nails done. I get my hair done. I wear makeup. I look cute sometimes. So what you talk about? But when you think about it on the energetic level, the polarities are out of balance. Because like you said, men need to be given permission to tap into that feminine space where they can express their emotions, not, out in the world for everybody to see, but in that relationship to just be, because part of being a woman is learning how to just be, not trying to fix everything, not trying to do this and that. But then you have to think about the family dynamic over the course of years. Women have been put in a role, you talking back in slavery, where they've had to do when the family was split up. And they had to be all of these things for the kids. And then you have feminism that was introduced and told women, you can do everything men can do and better. And it's just like, I want to meet these people, because y'all shook up, you made an already unstable balance even more unstable. And then you have all these women barking at men because they've lost touch with their femininity. And I've been in that space where I've had to shift, and it's a conscious shift to just be feminine, to be creative, because that's the feminine space, to just be, to do things, to be spontaneous and not so linear in your way of doing and your way of being. And when you're with someone, you have to have like come to Jesus meeting and say, okay, look, this is how it's been. We got to make some changes to both of us. And that's what people don't understand. It only takes one person in a relationship to change the trajectory of it based on shifting your mindset, which changes your behaviors because it makes you more aware of them. And when you start shifting your behaviors, your partner starts changing by default. I told a friend that, and she's like, we need counseling. I said, no, you don't. We can focus on you and he's going to change. She's like, Denise, how's that going to happen? I said, I'm going to show you how it's going to happen. She didn't even realize that his behavior was changing until we had a conversation and I heard her out. And when she finished, I said, are you paying attention to the things that you said he's doing now that he wasn't doing a few months ago? She was like, I don't understand. I said, you were working on yourself. You changed the way you're thinking, the way you approach him, the way you speak to him. And you're learning to respond, speaking your truth in love with grace. And what happened? And she was like, I'll be darned. Even he noticed that he was changing and he couldn't explain. He's like, I don't know what's going on with me. Because she shifted from her masculine space to her feminine space. And that spilled over into him. And he started doing more things that she wanted him to do without nagging. She gave him permission unknowingly to talk to her and be more open in their dialogue. And he would break down crying and she's like, okay, I'm going to allow you this time, but we're not going to get stuck here. So because she shifted, he shifted. And that's what people don't understand. When you're out of balance, and we're so, as genders, out of balance because we bought into a society, an unwritten norm. It's like, who made these rules? I just want to know who made these rules. But you can change it. You just have to be more consciously aware of it. What do you want? What are you gonna have to do to get there? And I'm big on telling people to check their ego at the door, because your ego is there to keep you safe.
Mhm.
It's not there to serve you in your highest good. But when you start to view things from the eyes of your heart, you see things that your ego has been hiding from you because its expressed intent is to keep you safe.
Mhm.
Nothing is safe.
Nothing. Nothing is guaranteed. Absolutely. And it's important for people to realize that life is a risk. Being in resistance to risk is resistant to life.
Well, it's
You know?
resistant to life, but it's also resistant to it's that control thing, because we've been
Mhm.
taught that we have to control everything. And I'm a reformed control freak.
Mm.
I would not let myself feel emotion because I said I'm not, because people have convinced us women to think that if we cry, if we show emotion, we're weak, we're ineffective. So I'm just like, I'm not gonna let, I'm no, you ain't gonna get to me. I'm just gonna suck it up, because I was operating in my masculine. But
Mhm.
now I feel, if it comes, I feel what I feel. And I tell people, feel what you feel, because if you get stuck in that, you're preventing yourself from moving forward, and you're trying to control things you can't control. If it's in your control to change it. If not, then just let it go. And
Right.
that's been like a phrase, that's been like my catchphrase the last, like 6 months, just let it go. And then I start sending Elsa memes from Frozen,
Mhm.
because you just gotta let it go. If you can change it, take the steps to
Right.
change it. Eat crow, check your ego, and say, okay, okay.
Yeah.
You'll you'll have a more peaceful state of mind, and how can I put it? You will invite energy that serves you
Mhm.
in the highest good for everybody that you encounter.
Right. Yes, indeed. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Oh man, you guys better be absorbing this for sure. Denise, let's talk about your book.
So and I didn't even bring a copy of it in here. I wrote a book that was, oh gosh, because that was 2000. I started writing it in 2010. I was at the lowest point in my marriage, contemplating suicide for the third time, because by the time I was 16, I'd attempted suicide twice. And that's when I discovered, after that second time where I should not have survived and it had no effect on me, I was like, okay, God, you must have a purpose for me. So you just have to show me what I'm supposed to do. So the outline of my book, oh gosh, 2008 maybe. No, it was longer than that, because my youngest was a baby and he's what, like 10 at that time.
Mhm.
um but that was tied to my healing. The more I wrote, the more I started changing, and the hard wall that I built up around my heart started falling, because pieces of it were being chipped away at. um I got stuck on chapter 2, which talks about forgiveness, because I hadn't dealt with forgiveness. So when you read my book, you feel the journey that I went through while writing it. And every chapter was a journey. But it's entitled My Story, Roller Coaster Ride to Healing. And it was an emotional roller coaster ride, because I had to confront things like insecurity that I hadn't thought about. It's like, where is my insecurity rooted? It was rooted when I was 9 years old, and my dad was taken out of my house, out of the home,
Mm.
because he was my superhero, and he wasn't there to protect me, because he protected me from my mother and having to deal with that. And he didn't realize it until he read my book. And that made him emotional, because that affected me. And most people don't know that if you're insecure about anything, 9 times out of 10, it's because of something that you dealt with as a child that
Mm.
you suppressed or compartmentalized, because you didn't want to deal with it because of the pain associated with it. So
Mm.
the people that have read my book, and mind you, this is just God's humor.
Mhm.
I wrote it for women. But the men that have read it were like, you were talking to me. I'm like, what? I wrote that for women. Because there were parts of it, and it helped men confront parts of themselves that they'd not been given permission to do. So, and I'm just thinking about that now. So yeah, I'm a male whisperer.
That's so dope. And it's crazy how that works. You know, it's crazy how that works. But when you surrender and you say, okay, guide me, show me what I'm supposed to do, shoot, your conscious mind might be like, this is what I'm supposed to do, but your heart keeps going in that direction. It keeps becoming attracted to you, and eventually you just got to surrender again and go with it. And that's when the most beautiful things begin to happen.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I read a book. Of course I have that book here. Mary Magdalene Revealed: The First Apostle, Her Feminist Gospel, and the Christianity We Haven't Tried Yet, by Megan Watterson. And when I did, because I worked with an energy healer for 7 weeks over the summer and had no idea what to expect, what was going to come from it. And I was like, I can't, and I'd never spent that kind of money on myself before, and did it. And this is how I know it was spirit, because I did it without thinking. And then when I did it, like 3 days later, I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? Mm-hmm. Because I'm not like that at all. But she sent me, the energy worker that I work with sent me this book. And it talks about God's relationship with Mary Magdalene, or Jesus' relationship with Mary Magdalene. And a constant thread throughout the book is not viewing things through your physical eye, but viewing things through the eyes of your heart, because you'll see things in a completely different perspective that isn't skewed. So you can meet people where they are, understand where they are, ask questions about how you can help them move past where they are. And by adopting that, I'm able to view people in a completely different light. And I can't explain it. I just can't explain it, but it's a completely different perspective based on letting the heart guide and not being afraid to see what it shows you, because it's going to show you. The ego, like I said, is there to protect you. Mm-hmm. And the ego keeps us from so many great things because it doesn't make sense. Whereas when you're looking at it through the eyes of your heart, you're like, okay, that feels better. Because we've been taught, feelings are bad. Right. Feelings
I wonder why.
Yeah, feelings aren't bad if it's in connection with your spirit, and if God is the driving force behind it.
Yeah, and it keeps you from your truth. It keeps you from your mission. It keeps you from your purpose. But you got to listen to that heart, that inner guidance system. And we'll dive into that, and that'll be a whole nother episode. But before we tap out, I want to ask you, Denise, what is one thing everybody listening needs to know right now if they want to live a life by design instead of by default?
Everything that you think you know is a lie.
Just slam the hammer on them, huh?
Everything you think you know is a lie, because we've been conditioned to think in a traditional mindset, that unless you've achieved the American dream, that you've not arrived, or, that this is what the family dynamic is supposed to be. The dad goes off to work and the mom, is dressed in her 1950s gear and in 2020 way. And then the kids are this way and that way. That is not how it's supposed to be. So everything that we've been taught in how to relate to the opposite sex, giving ourselves permission to explore our desires, our goals, and our dreams, and taking risks, because we've not been taught to take risks. That's so far fetched for so many people. So you have to deprogram yourself from all of that conditioning, because it's not how we were created to live. It's a way to control us to grow to a certain level, and then we just stop. We essentially put ourselves in a box because that's what society says.
Mhm.
But then you think about it on a bigger scale. God created us all different with different gifts and talents that he expects us to use for the greater good.
Mhm.
But that's suppressed because that's too, no, we'll go to church on Sunday and that's as far as we'll take that.
Right.
So you have to be willing to explore the things that you don't know and tuning out the naysayers, because especially if God gave you an idea, a vision about something he wants you to do, he gave it to you. So, and that's not, don't talk about all your stuff. Let your actions speak.
Mm.
Because then people aren't going to try to talk you out of it because they're like, girl, you crazy. And
Mhm.
you listen to people. That's why you have to you have to develop a bulletproof mindset and be okay with people falling off, because they will. And being open to taking risks, because we can't control everything. And you don't know what that risk might end up. Imagine if Tyler Perry never took that risk.
Right. Right.
Still be somewhere down in ATL doing the same stuff he was doing. He might still be homeless. We don't know. But he took a risk despite what everybody else was saying.
Mhm.
You have to develop your mind and be open to the impossible, because what the mind can what the mind can achieve and believe it can, or what the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. But that's all mindset.
That's
And
right.
that's Napoleon Hill from what, way back when?
Yeah, what, like 1910 or something? Like this isn't new, but it's new to us, and but that doesn't change its value. We get to jump on this information.
Yes.
It's beautiful stuff. Thank you, Denise, so much for having this conversation with me. I had a phenomenal time. And to everybody listening, as always, love, be well. Don't forget to have the guts to follow your guts. Peace.